Welcome back to the channel of Truth, Trust and Transparency. Today I'm answering another one of your questions. Comes from a young guy. I don't know your name in particular because your username was a bunch of letters and numbers, which I can see your date of birth, which starts in the 2000s, which is pretty scary. But young lad wants to get into development, has asked me a question. I thought there's going to be plenty of you out there, and if I can answer this, give you guys a little bit of insight. So I thought if I answered his question, it'd also give a lot of you guys out there a bit of insight into getting started. It goes like this. Hey Davo, first time I've been called Davo. Love your work with the vids. I'm currently 21, looking to get into property development like you and don't know where to start, question mark. What would be your suggestions for someone like me, question mark? I've got a decent job and over $100,000 in savings as I still live with my parents, but I'm pretty lost and don't want to know where to start, nor do I want a portfolio of 50 houses. I like development. So, appreciate the question, and I know there's a lot of similar people out there, and I think, look, there's a couple of things you can do, but what I always say to people is if you try to sort of get started in development straight away, it's kind of like you're building a table with one leg. Is that all it takes is, a very mild gust of wind to push you over and for everything to fall over, especially if you go borrowing money from mum and dad and all that kind of stuff. So what I usually recommend you do is two things simultaneously. Number one is build the base. So that generally looks at anywhere between sort of 2 to 4 really good properties. The reason for this is because, and as I always say, and if you haven't seen these sorts of videos, is if you go too cheap in the development game and you're doing a job that has like a $80,000 or $100,000 profit, it's really quickly that can get gobbled up by things like tax, if there is building variations, if there are issues, or if there are compliance, or just something comes up that needs 20-30 grand. That's 20-30% of your profit gone. Whereas if you're making, say, 500,000, 600,000, then that's as low as sort of like 5%, or maybe even it's less. So it's a lot of you have a lot more meat in the deal. Now, for those deals that are a little bit further on than the real cheap end of town, and the cheap end of town is great if you're maybe a builder developer, because obviously you don't have a builder's margin. If you're if you're just a developer, you got to pay a builder. The builder builds it, build price plus his margin. Then the margins are razor tight at that end of the game. So once we come up a little bit further, if these jobs, and I say to you, look, it's going to cost you, call it 400,000 with a buffer, $400,000 to get into these projects. What you'll find is that even if you have saved $100,000, that could have taken you, I don't know the full context of how long that's taken you to save, but even with your parents, you can put away, 50% of your take-home salary on your take-home salary, and you can save, $50,000 a year. Then to get to this amount here, it's going to take you 8 years of savings, which is so much money. That's why I recommend you first leverage into resi property. Easiest barrier to entry, a low barrier to entry, easiest, and then you're leveraging your money. You're putting in that $100,000 would probably be your first purchase, or potentially splitting it across two, depending. But 100K is your first 1 to 2 properties, right? Then from there, that 100K is split up into assets that are worth $300,000 or $400,000. Now, if both of those assets see 10% of growth, then you're making $60,000 to $80,000 on paper in 1 year. $60,000 to $80,000 plus whatever you're able to save is better than you just trying to save your way there. So I always say number one is to build the base up. That way, when we leave this to marinate for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, that way, when it comes to developing, you've built up a really good asset base. You can do an equity release. Potentially you can sell off one if it's, for example, a Perth play that's seen 50, 60, 70% over 5 years. You can potentially sell one of those off. And then it's easy for you to then go, okay, well, now I've got 400 grand in cash. And even if you've sold off, say, one, you've had four, you've sold off one, you have three left. If anything goes wrong or you do need extra money, there's different levers that you can pull. Can I do a small cosmetic renovation, get a revalue, equity release? I could potentially sell another one. I could do a little reno. I can do revalues again. It might be 6 or 12 months time. So you have a lot of different levers to pull when you have a property portfolio. Whereas when it's just you with 100 grand and you borrow 100 grand from mum, you borrow 100 grand from dad, you borrow 100 grand from grandpa, then if it all falls apart, then you're not only starting from, you got nothing to fall back on, you got no base, you got no legs to the table, but then you owe everyone 100 grand. It's a bad place to be in. So number one would be the build the base. Number two would be build up knowledge. Now, I, for example, have been in development for over 10 years and I am still learning every single day and on each and every project. You can never learn too much, especially in the development space. So your podcasts, your YouTube videos like this, all those sorts of things, I'd just be slowly picking up and learning and being curious, forever trying to be a student to build up the knowledge base, because there's a good chance that if you're 21, I think it was, you're not going to know everything. You're going to know probably a very, very small thing about development. Then there's finance you need to worry about. Then there's construction. Then there's markets. Then there's, real estate, negotiating, the art of buying, the art of selling. There's so many things that I think you need to focus on. So one is build the base. Two is build the knowledge. Three, build the salary. So build up the salary as well. So I'm not too sure what job you're doing, but I'm always trying to, and what I did when I was capped out a while back was I started up, I just really worked on my career. I took a new job. I went up in pay. I kept pushing and pushing and pushing for bonuses, pay increases, those sorts of things. I also minimized and got rid of my HEX debt. So if you've got any debt as well, I'd work on trying to clear that off to make yourself the best asset in the bank's eyes in terms of wanting to lend them money. So building up the salary, that could also mean, and again, it's hard because I don't know what you do for work, but can you upskill? Is there, courses or programs or opportunities inside of the type of work that you do where if you did it, it could unlock, another promotion or anything like that. We want to be able to build up the salary. The more you build up the salary, the better your borrowing capacity, the quicker that you can do that, and the more money that you're able to save or put away, especially if you're still living with your parents at 21. So you might be there for a few more years, be able to save that money, build up the salary, get to that really quick, and be able to hit those 2 to 4 properties as soon as possible. Number 4 is stay disciplined. The danger that you have when you are 21 years old, or if anyone is watching my videos and you're probably anywhere between 15, 16, 17, 18, all the way up to your 25, your brain probably hasn't developed fully yet. This is where all your mates are starting to get into full-time work. They're starting to see proper money for the first time. A lot of people are going out and buying stupid shit. What do I mean by that? Ford Raptor. Like you've probably got mates that are on less than you. They'll go out and finance a car for 100% of their salary. It is absolutely ludicrous. So stay disciplined and don't do stupid shit like that for your money. You can still live life. You can still do some sort of, holiday every year. You can still find the money and the time for some things, but you don't need Rolexes. You don't need fucking designer at your age. In my opinion, you probably don't need as well, that brand new car and all those sorts of things. Just forgo all of that stuff, because trust me, once you hit that development that development highway, you're going to come screaming past your mates that wanted to sell out in the early days. So number 4, just stay disciplined. You know what your path is. You know what you need to do. Get your horse blinkers on that. Don't worry about the shiny stuff, the things that other people are, spending and blowing their money on. You just need to stay disciplined, to be honest. You know what? I could probably go in a list and get vaguer and vaguer and vaguer, but I think if you stay disciplined, you just work hard, build your salary, you're building up your knowledge and your education at the same time, whilst also building up a base for assets, then in 3, 4, 5 years, I don't think you'll be in a terrible position. Remember, you've got so much time on your side. If you're 21 years old, there's not a lot of 21-year-old. I don't know if there's any 21-year-old developers that have done it themselves, but you have so much time on your side, especially if you're watching this in your 20s, if you're watching this in your 30s, if you're watching this in your 40s, you still have plenty of time on your side. So for me, build up a base of assets. 2 to 4, we want to get that to a couple of mil. We want to get those assets growing. We want to build that capital base so that if we could do an equity release or if we sold down, we'd have, say, $500,000, right? Build up the knowledge base. That is everywhere. That's the internet. That's podcasts. That's YouTube. Again, as I said, and I think I teased about it a video or two ago, I've got an important section coming up as well to help with that. Build up your salary. Work hard at what you do for work. See if you can climb those ranks, because that will then turbocharge this and turbocharge the money that you need. And then stay disciplined, stay the course. And remember, time is on your side, but you do need to dedicate, and it will take 2, 3, 4, 5 years of consistent hard work. But that is my tips to getting into development, especially such a young age. But congratulations on saving 100K too. I can remember those days also, and it's super cool to think that a younger version of myself is now watching my videos. So really cool. If you've got any other questions, guys, let me know in the comments. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow.